The wire transfer cleared at 4:47 a.m. I was already awake. I am always already awake when money moves. $2,800 sliding out of an LLC called Sunrise Support Group into my mother's mortgage account without her ever knowing my fingerprints were on it. I closed the app, set my phone face down on the nightstand of my modest Atlanta apartment, and stared at the ceiling the way I have stared at it for 7 years. My name is Valentina Reyes. I am 33 years old. My compliance officer salary is $74,000 a year. I drive a 2013 Nissan Altima. My family calls me the bank girl, with a softness in their voices that neighbors pity. Here is what my family does not know. I am the anonymous founder and silent majority shareholder of Castellan Group, a private equity firm headquartered in Milan. I built it at 24 with an $800,000 wrongful termination settlement that made quiet legal history and deliberately never made my name. Our portfolio sits at $1.4 billion under management. My personal net worth cleared $31 million last February and has not stopped climbing since. I have 2 phones, 2 wardrobes, one in Atlanta, one in a storage unit near Hartsfield, Jackson, holding the kind of clothes that get you escorted to the front of rooms. I fly to Milan 4 times a year under a legal alias. I am, depending on which door you walk through, either the family disappointment or one of the most quietly powerful women in private equity. My family has only ever seen one door. For 7 years, I told myself that was love. I had not yet understood it was also punishment. The Reyes Marino family performs loudly. My mother, Rosa, runs a catering business in San Antonio that has been almost profitable for 11 years. She is warm and dramatic and completely convinced that a woman's greatest achievement is a full table and a husband at the head of it. My brother, Dante, 37, occupies the generous space between ambition and delusion. He calls himself a real estate investor. What he is, more precisely, is a man who grows electric at the beginning of deals and goes silent when they collapse. He owns a truck that costs more than my apartment lease. He has never once asked how I'm doing without needing something within 3 minutes of the answer. Then there's the Marino side. My Aunt Conchetta married well in New Jersey 30 years ago and has not let the family forget it since. Her daughter Giada married Dr. Luca Ferrante, neurosurgeon, Manhattan practice, West Village brownstone, and documents their life with the dedication of someone who believes posterity requires photographic proof of every meal. At every family gathering, someone holds up Giada's Instagram like a compass and points it at me. What none of them know is that for 7 years, I have been quietly funding the lives they perform so loudly. Rose's mortgage, her catering equipment replaced twice through anonymous grants, Dante's 4 collapsed deals rescued through anonymous investor injections that kept him from losing everything, medical bills, insurance gaps, a new HVAC system disguised as a warranty claim. Over 7 years, $940,000. Delivered in silence, received without knowledge. Nearly $1 million of love that looked from the outside like nothing at all. Dante's daughter Isabella turned 15 in October in a rented hall in San Antonio, decorated to the absolute limit. I arrived in the Altima, department store dress, gift I wrapped myself. Dante saw me walk in. He turned to the man beside him and said something he did not bother to lower his voice for. That's my sister. Some people just don't have the drive, you know? I stood still for 3 seconds. Then I smiled and walked to the dessert table. Later, Giada materialized near the punch bowl with the energy of someone about to be generous at no personal cost. Luca has a colleague at Emory who does career consultations, helps people pivot when they feel stuck. I could connect you. That's thoughtful, Giada. You have potential, Valentina. It's not too late. I looked at her carefully. because Luca Ferrante's name had just crossed my desk. It had appeared in the Castellan Group shareholder registry access logs, buried inside Marco Vitelli's latest audit report. I smiled with every muscle in my face. "I'll think about it," I said. I drove back to Atlanta that night and called Marco before I crossed the Georgia state line. Marco Vitelli does not deliver bad news dramatically. He is a Milanese forensic accountant who speaks in the measured cadence of a man allergic to waste. When he called me into a secure video conference 3 days after the quinceañera, he had already organized everything into a numbered document with clean headers. I have learned, the neater the document, the worse the contents. "Start from the beginning," I told him. 18 months ago, someone began accessing the Castellan Group shareholder registry through a proxy server traced back to a residential address in San Antonio, my mother's address. Whoever it was knew exactly which documents to find: entity structures, ownership percentages, the alias registration connecting my legal name to my operating identity inside the firm. They found everything. 4 months after the first access, a new document surfaced inside my oldest holding company, a Delaware LLC called Valor Partners that sits at the base of Castellan Group's entire ownership chain. A notarized equity transfer agreement assigning 12% of Valor Partners to Dante Reyes of San Antonio, Texas. Notarized and dated 7 years ago. My signature was on it. I stared at the screen. "That's not possible." Marco's expression did not move. "The notary is real. The document is legally registered. 2 independent analysts have confirmed the signature is yours." 7 years ago. I was 26. Castellan was 18 months old. Dante had asked me to sign a stack of papers at a UPS store, something about a notary requirement for a refinancing. I had been distracted. I had been in a hurry. I had signed where he pointed. I had not read every page. 12% of Valor Partners. At current valuation, $21 million. Dante had been sitting on it for 7 years, saying nothing, driving his expensive truck, calling me unambitious at his daughter's quinceañera. "There's more," Marco said. "There is always more." Luca Ferrante had been brought in 6 months ago. Dante had contacted him directly, disclosed my identity, and presented the shareholder document as leverage for a private acquisition conversation. Luca had since made quiet inquiries through a third party about acquiring additional Castellan stake through Dante's position. They had not moved yet. They were waiting. Then Marco turned to page 7. His voice dropped half a register. "Valentina, I've verified this through 3 separate channels." He shared his screen. A letter, handwritten, in my father's handwriting. Eduardo Reyes, who died when I was 19, who I had buried with grief so large it reshaped me entirely. I read it once, then again. Then I sat back and stared at the ceiling of my Atlanta apartment for a long, long time. Because everything I believed about my own story, the lawsuit, the settlement, the door that built my empire, had just collapsed and rearranged itself into something I had never once imagined. And Dante had been holding this letter for 14 years. I did not sleep that night. I sat until the Atlanta skyline shifted from black to gray to pale gold, and I read my father's letter 11 times, not because I didn't understand it, because understanding it meant dismantling every story I had ever told myself about who I was and how I got here. Eduardo had written it from a hospital bed 3 weeks before he died. His handwriting leaned in places, letters bracing against each other like men in wind. But the words were precise. Eduardo was always precise. "Mija, by the time you read this, you will already be everything I knew you would be. You just won't know yet that I helped you get there. He had known about the discrimination at Hargrove Financial before I did. A labor attorney named Gerald Okafor had been building a case against the firm for 2 years. Eduardo approached him from his hospital bed, presented documented evidence gathered through connections I never knew he had, and asked Gerald to find me, recruit me as lead plaintiff, and ensure the case was airtight. He made Gerald promise never to tell me. He did not want me to feel rescued. He wanted me to feel capable. The settlement came through 4 months after Eduardo died, $800,000. I had stood in Gerald's office crying, believing I had fought for myself and won, believing I was the architect of my own beginning. I was. He had simply handed me the tools without letting me see his hands. "I am not giving you a head start," the letter read. "I am giving you a door. What you build behind it is entirely yours. It always was." He had left the second letter for Dante. In it, he asked 2 things. First, hold the notarized equity document, arranged through a power of attorney clause I had unknowingly signed at 18 as part of a family estate filing, until the time was right. The 12% was never Dante's to keep. It was Eduardo's insurance. If anyone ever came for Castellan Group, there would already be a family stake embedded in the foundation. An anchor, a legal wall no outside party could dismantle without going through blood. Second, watch over Valentina without her knowledge. Do not interfere, do not reveal. Just watch and act only if her empire was genuinely threatened. When Dante discovered VUCA's quiet inquiries 6 months ago, he had not been conspiring. He had been running his own audit, building a paper trail, doing exactly what his father asked. I drove to San Antonio 3 days later, no call ahead. Rosa opened the door in her apron, flour on her forearms, her kitchen smell arriving before she could. Her face moved through surprise, relief, and something that looked like bracing. "I need to talk to you and Dante, tonight." She nodded and stepped back. Dante arrived an hour later, walked into the kitchen, saw my face, and sat down without a word. He folded his hands on the table the way men do when they have been waiting a long time for a conversation and are not certain it will leave them standing. I placed the letter between us. He looked at it, then at me. He looked at it, then at me. "How long have you known about Castellan Group?" 5 years, he said quietly. "And you said nothing." "Dad said not to." "Dante." My voice broke on the second syllable. I had not expected that. "You let your friend call me someone without drive. You watched Giada offer me a career consultation like I was lost. You've sat at your daughter's quinceañera and said nothing." "You were hiding, Valentina." His eyes held steady. "I couldn't blow your cover. That was your choice, not mine. You could have told me what Dad did." "He asked me not to, not until you were ready." "How were you supposed to know when I was ready?" "When you stopped hiding." A pause. "You drove here unannounced. You put the letter on the table. You're not hiding anymore." I looked at my brother, really looked. A man who had been sitting on $21 million in protected equity for 7 years and had not touched a cent of it because his father asked him not to. I had spent 7 years funding a family I thought was careless with everything. I had not once considered they might be careful with the things that mattered most. Rosa sat beside me and covered my hand with hers. Warm, dry, irreplaceably familiar. "Eduardo said you needed to believe in yourself before you could believe in any of us," she said softly. "He said if you knew he'd helped, you'd never fully own what you built." "He was right," I said. "I would have unraveled it. I would have questioned everything. You were always the strongest one. We just weren't always smart enough to show you we knew it." The reckoning with Luca came swiftly. My attorney contacted him Monday morning. Brief, no room for interpretation. Dante's equity position was documented and legitimate. Any attempt to leverage it for acquisition would trigger immediate legal action, full board disclosure, and fraud referrals were applicable. Luca's inquiries stopped that same afternoon. Giada called that evening. Her voice was stripped bare. "Did you know about all of it?" "I built it," I said simply. A long silence. "I offered to help you with your career." The humiliation was unguarded, complete. "You did." "Valentina, I'm sorry. Every comparison, every comment, I didn't know." "I know you didn't. I know, neither did I. Not all of it. We did not become close overnight. That is not how real things work. But sometimes that is exactly where something honest begins." 3 months later, I stood at a podium in Milan. Women Who Build. 400 people in a glass-walled conference hall overlooking the city. My name on the program. My real name. My full story in my own voice for the first time. I had rewritten my remarks 4 times, almost pulled out twice. I looked out at the room and thought about Eduardo Reyes writing from a hospital bed, betting everything on a daughter who did not yet know her own value. I thought about 7 years of hiding, 7 years of testing people who were, in their imperfect and deeply human way, already on my side. I thought about how close I had come to burning every relationship I had because I was more comfortable being invisible than being seen. I leaned into the microphone. "I built an empire," I said, "and for 7 years I hid it from everyone I loved. I told myself it was strategy. I told myself it was protection. The truth was simpler and harder than that. I was afraid, not of failure. I had already survived failure. I was afraid of being loved for the right reasons and still feeling like it wasn't enough." The room was very still. "My father built me a door," I said. "It took me 14 years to stop hiding behind it." I formalized Dante's 12% into a clean partnership agreement, not as a gift, as what it always was, a promise kept, a father's final act of love made official and whole. I funded Rose's catering business openly for the first time. No LLC, no anonymous grant. I walked into her kitchen, sat at her table, and wrote the number on a piece of paper. She looked at it for a long time. Then she looked at me. "Your father always said you would change the world." I gave him a head start. "No," she shook her head. "He gave you a door. You built everything behind it. That was always you, mija. That was always entirely you." I did not argue. For the first time in 14 years, I did not need to. Hey guys, heartfelt appreciation goes to each and every one of you for your continuous viewerships and support towards this my channel. Now here is what I need you to do. If you saw yourself somewhere in Valentina, in Eduardo's quiet faith, or in the family that kept a secret out of love, give this video a thumbs up. It costs you nothing and it means everything to this channel. And drop a comment telling me where in the world you are listening from right now. I read every single one. If someone you know is hiding their own greatness, share this story with them. Sometimes the right words at the right moment are the door. See you all in my next video.